Happy May the 4th, Star Wars fans, and welcome to this very special live edition of Tatooine Sons. Today is bittersweet. We celebrate the unofficial Star Wars Day with the series finale of the Clone Wars. And you can't have this groundbreaking series without the evolution of its primary character, Ahsoka Tano. In tonight's episode, we're each sharing our reasons for why we believe Ahsoka is the perfect Jedi. But first, we'll give our thoughts on the finale, along with the premiere of Disney Gallery The Mandalorian, and an unexpected but welcome announcement about the next Star Wars film.
I am no Jedi.
It's time for Tatooine Sons.
What is the name of the Porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that Porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was lit.
Welcome, Star Wars fans. This is Tatooine Sons, your weekly look at all things Star Wars.
Star Wars.
Yes.
From
and I've totally forgot, from a unique perspective of a father sharing his love
Live
for
in
space
nerves.
fantasy saga with his two sons. I'm BB-8, and I'm joined first by my brother, Sam a lot.
Shoot to Star Wars fans, thanks for tuning in. And if you're not a Star Wars fan, then you're going to learn about one of our most favorite Jedi, Snips.
Who's Snips?
Ahsoka.
Oh, okay. All right.
And of course, you can't have Star Wars without bizarre father figures. And on that note, here's my dad, the Bow Tie Jedi Guy.
I feel like we've done this before.
Maybe once or twice,
a little bit, but we're working through it. You know, we did this live already.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and I wasn't happy. I'm a perfectionist. I wasn't happy with the way that the intro happened. We had some blurry stuff. We had some camera issues. We had some audio issues. Mm-hmm. And so for the video on demand, we decided to do it again. So it's just the first 5 minutes. So,
yeah, just a little intro.
Yeah, happy. I should say hopeful May the 4th.
Yeah,
I guess that works.
Hopeful it works.
Yeah,
for it. You know, let's just do this. Let's just jump right into this week's hot takes. IG-11 is back in Star Wars, but probably not in the way that you're thinking. We're finally getting an in-depth look at the making of the greatest live-action series in television history. Hold on, I'm going to hit something real quick.
I have spoken.
Yeah, it didn't work. Okay, all right, and and then there's that whole Clone Wars finale thing. So yeah, it's kind of cool. It's time for hot takes.
This is where the fun begins.
Well, you want the bad news or the really bad news?
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
All right, we're back. I'm doing a lot right now. We may be changing that up going into the next thing here. Looks like we're blurry here. Did you guys notice that?
It's just a little off. It's getting its bearings.
It's focusing.
There we go. All right.
Nice.
How's everybody doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah?
A little out of my comfort zone, but
All
good.
right. Let's talk about Taika Waititi. Yes, he's making a Star Wars on this. So StarWars.com, they announced it today. Academy Award winner Taika Waititi. Do you guys realize he won an Oscar?
Yeah.
No, I did not.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Who recently won Best Adapted Screenplay for Jojo Rabbit, and directed the widely acclaimed first series finale episode of The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. Will direct and co-write a new Star Wars feature film for the theatrical release. Joining Waititi on the screenplay will be Academy Award nominee Christy, I think that's how you pronounce that, Wilson Cairns. Now, she did 1917.
Oh, really?
And The Last Night in Solo. Anybody ever heard of The Last Night?
I've heard of it, but I don't know what it's about.
Never heard of it. 1917 was good, though.
It was awesome. So, and she received a BAFTA award for Outstanding British Film of the Year for 1917. In addition, Emmy-nominated writer, we talked about this on the last episode, Leslie Headland from Russian Doll and Bachelorette, not the ABC series. I think it's a movie.
Really? Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
Do they write for that show?
For the
ABC series?
I don't think so. Anyway, is currently developing a new untitled Star Wars series for Disney Plus. And then Dr. Aphra. Headland will write, executive produce, and serve as showrunner for the series, which adds to a growing list of Star Wars stories for Disney's streaming platform, including The Mandalorian, now on casting now in post-production on season 2, and 2 other previously announced series, one based on Cassian Andor's life prior to the events of Rogue One, and a Star Wars story, another following the adventures of Obi-Wan Kenobi between Star Wars Revenge of the Sith and Star Wars A New Hope. I'm going to turn this over to you, Samuel Hutt.
Okay.
What do you think of Waititi's film? What do you think it's going to be about? And is it possible it could be a crossover with Thor?
Oh, it's definitely a crossover. I mean, they were in space at the end of Ragnarok, right? So maybe, and there's a bit of a gap between Infinity War and Ragnarok. So I think, maybe they had an encounter with the Empire or something. They had to fight them off and Rebels came in. I think it's totally within the realm of possibilities for that. What do I think it'll be about, though? I think that'll just be a little clip of it. I have no idea because he's a very...
comedic
he's
writer.
an action comedy writer, hence Thor Ragnarok. So, I mean, I could think of, the first character that would come to mind, if this was like focusing on a central character, would be Solo, but that's already been done.
Yeah.
So maybe a Lando film?
Maybe.
That would be pretty cool. What do you think about this, BB Nate? Where do you stand on the Taika Waititi film?
I really enjoyed Thor Ragnarok. I just watched it again pretty recently, a couple months ago, and I really enjoyed it. It's a really good MCU film, but I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be about. It's going to be a little bit of an interesting take because, like Sammy said, he's an action comedy writer, but I don't know if he would really go with Lando. I think that they're going to start trying to branch out from the characters in the Skywalker saga, try to focus more on the comics or even make new characters. So I'm not 100% sure about Lando. I wouldn't mind seeing it, but I don't think it'll be Lando.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm excited about Taika Waititi. I enjoyed Thor Ragnarok, although I felt like it was very different than the previous 2 Thor films.
Yeah.
The others were sort of heavy and
dark,
Shakespearean in nature and that kind of thing. And Ragnarok was like an 80s Flash Gordon serial.
One of the things that was bad about Dark World, though, is it was like really too serious, and it took itself way too seriously. It was tough to watch.
Okay.
So I think they tried to wreck on that. And in the Thor previous Avengers films and stuff, they started bringing more humor in and stuff. So I think it worked. But this is not an Avengers podcast.
What did you think about Thor Ragnarok, BB Nate?
I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I thought that it's up there for me in the MCU films. It's always a good time to watch it. It has a lot of action. I mean, the beginning's always also a lot of fun to watch. But it's just it does have the seriousness and darkness in it. But I just think that it's a very good film. But
yeah, I would say that Taika Waititi's episodes of The Mandalorian
were perfect.
Were some of the best episodes in there, including that last one, the finale of it.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about The Mandalorian. But all I have to say, I'm going to agree with Han Solo and just say this.
I like this guy.
All right. So you guys want to check in on Buster and see how he's doing? We got the Buster cam going over there.
He's taking a nap.
Turbis is named after Buster, so you guys can figure that out there. He's just chilling over there. All right, let's talk about the next one. First impressions. We just talked about The Mandalorian.
Yes.
First impressions, Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian. The first episode of Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian is out on Disney+. It focuses exclusively on the directors. We learned lots of fun little nuggets, like when Bryce Dallas Howard, Ron Howard's daughter, talked about seeing Jurassic Park at the age of 12. Mm-hmm. And then Deborah Chow talked about liking to kill stormtroopers with that. I'm not sure my expectations could have been any higher going into the first installment of this series. So I'm going to hold my thoughts back for a moment. BB Nate, what was your favorite moment of this episode?
Definitely the end because after
because it was over.
It's
the
over.
Credits.
But no, because it was all about Taika
Waititi.
Yeah, it's a difficult name to say, but it was all about him. And right after that, we heard about him doing a movie, so it was really nice to hear his thoughts on how he directed and how he still kept his comedy in it, but still made it heavy because it was the season finale, so he had to do that.
And he's very different from all the other like directors and stuff when you were watching the clips, because he's around in like these bright shirts and like flat bill caps and stuff, being a goofball, and everyone else is usually pretty serious and laid back and really focused, and he's just being a weirdo off in the corner, which is cool. I like that. But
so BB Nate's favorite part about the first episode was that it ended. Is that what you said?
No,
not really.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Okay, so anyway, BB or Samuel the Hutt, what was your favorite part of this episode?
I'm probably gonna steal Dad's here, but it was when Dave Filoni.
Oh, you stole mine.
Yeah, I was wondering if Nathan was gonna say. I thought all three of us were gonna pick this.
It's what I was thinking. That I'm like, that's probably Dad.
That's
so
why
I'll
I
go
had
for a different
that
one.
as a backup,
and that's why BB Nate's my favorite child. Okay,
I was gonna do that as a backup in case he took the Dave thing.
Yeah. So.
But no, I mean, I really love the story of hearing when Dave got the call from Lucasfilm Animation, which at the time didn't exist, because he was. I don't know if you've seen the show. Should I do
spoilers?
brief?
Yeah, I mean, we'll do a mini spoiler alert here. That's not the normal spoiler alert, but
Not
we'll
at
go
all.
with it. So.
So I'll briefly paraphrase this. He was working at Nickelodeon. He got this call from something called Lucasfilm Animation saying they were recommended. He was recommended to them by George to do possibly a show for them.
But the funny thing is, they said he's like, there is no Lucasfilm Animation,
right?
Says my
and
my
so
mini Dave Filoni right there.
Yeah,
so.
that was good. So he's sitting there like, okay, yeah, Lucasfilm Animation. You're totally being a goofy about it, right? Not totally not thinking it was serious. So he's like, well, we'd like, the other person on the phone was like, well, we'd like to meet up with you and schedule a time. He's like, oh, okay. So we'll schedule for this time. And then right before they were about to get off, he was like, so who put you up to this? And they're like, what are you talking about? He's like, did the guys from SpongeBob put you up to this? Because he was working at Nickelodeon at the time. And they're like, are you the guy? Are you Dave Filoni working on Avatar? And he's like, he at that point he realized that this was probably
Avatar:
serious.
The Last Airbender, not the movie.
Oh yeah,
James
yeah.
Cameron,
I gotta
so.
clarify that. But he's like, oh yes, I'm so much the guy. I'm very much the guy or whatever. So that was fun.
It was,
and then he goes in to the interview, sits there with George Lucas, doesn't think it's going to happen, but he's like, man, this is going to give me some serious street cred with the fans in line.
He's getting ready to go watch Revenge of the Sith, and it's something he can't stop talking about, and so he just keeps he jumps in line. Or he's thinking he's gonna be able to brag about beating George Lucas,
right,
and that kind of thing.
And then he gets out of the room, shakes George's hand. It's like, that was great. Gets in another room. It was like, well, that was fun. I'll be able to talk about this later. And then a producer pops in. Through the door, is like, he likes it. You got the job, and then walks out.
I want to go home and rethink my life.
Yeah. So that was you did steal mine.
I'm sorry.
That was the one that I really wanted to go with. I would say, outside of that, the connection between the different directors and how they were all talking about this is one big, this is one season that's all coming together, and we're all having to individually work together, and that's kind of unusual to tell this consistent story from start to finish through 8 episodes. But then also how Favreau and Filoni specifically talked about how each episode was its own little story.
It was its own little movie.
But it still felt like it was all connected. And that was
yeah.
just the genius of the series.
Yeah.
I mean, you could certainly tell that each episode had a different feel to it. Like, there were different directors, but it didn't feel out of place,
No.
They were all great. They all felt like one cohesive story, but each director brought an interesting flavor to the table.
Yeah. What did you guys think about how they all emphasized, and I remember hearing this nugget in the preparation for the series when we were hearing about the preparation. Bryce Dallas Howard, Ron Howard's daughter. Obviously, she's an actress that's been, she's very successful. She's been in the Jurassic World series and reboots. She was in The Village. She's been in a lot of different movies, and she's got a pedigree when it comes to directing because her father is Ron flippin' Howard, who did Solo up there on the wall behind Samuel the Hutt. So, and a bunch of other amazing movies. So I had not thought about the fact, though, that she hadn't directed anything.
Yeah.
Before this. And they were talking about how her episode was very unique in the pacing, the difficulties.
Yeah, they said it was one of the most difficult ones out of them all.
They kind of joked and said we gave it to her because she didn't know how hard it was going to be, and we wouldn't have to. Nobody else would have taken it because it's so difficult with the agrarian society and all that. What did you think about how That one was a little bit more of the kind of a criticized episode.
It was
to some extent.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was criticized for its pacing. It was slower. People didn't like it as much. What did you think about that episode now in the light of what you heard from Favreau and such?
Well, I never really had much of a problem with that episode in the first place. I will admit it was a slower feel than all the other episodes, but that's not to say it was slow at all. It let it breathe. There was a lot of character development, a lot of bringing in Cara Dune and stuff, but it was good in the end. I really liked that episode. It really helped you understand the Mandalorian as a character.
That's awesome. All right. Go ahead, B. Nate.
I mean, with me, I thought it was very good to show the different path that the Mandalorian could take if he took off the helmet, gave up the Mandalorian life.
Oh, like he could have had, like he was given a choice in this moment, like of two different potential futures, and he was. It almost looks like, you're right. It almost looks like he's getting ready to choose that woman with her child and sort of settling down. I can't remember her name. But then that shot rings out that looks like it's going to take out Baby Yoda or the child or whatever they want to call it. So, and he goes back to the other. So explain what you were saying.
It was a lot of, I think he wanted to, but then he noticed I have this kid and he's not safe here. I thought he would be, but I need to protect him over everything else. And like they were saying, he found his morals during this series. And so it's a very interesting concept of how the character development for the Mandalorian really grows in this episode. So
yeah. All right. Well, we should probably end that with
spoken.
Oh, thank you, Keely. Okay, and talk about really the big news for today. The Clone Wars is over. That makes me
sad.
Very sad.
All right. So because of the novel of E.K. Johnston and her later appearances in Star Wars Rebels, we already had some idea about what had happened to Ahsoka after the end of the Clone Wars. We had already seen the start of Order 66 in the previous episode, but today we saw the entire 501st Legion coming after her and Rex. Series finales can often be less than satisfying. My question to you guys is, how did you feel about the Clone Wars and how it ended?
I thought if we were just going by this last episode, I would say, it kind of feels a little disjointed and unsatisfying, but you can't think of it as just this last episode. I mean, they specifically and purposefully put parts they broke it up into parts. So I think we need to look at it as one cohesive story, in which case it feels great. And it feels like this whole season was just one giant series finale, because it was a lot of,
really, I mean,
character.
You're thinking about all the way back to Bad Batch.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And all of that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the clones. You got to build up the fact that clones are characters and people too, which makes the end more difficult. You've got the whole Ahsoka arc for obvious reasons that's important to build up Ahsoka's character, and then you've got this end arc where it all starts to culminate, and you already have an idea of what's happening, like you know what's going to happen, but it still hits hard. But as for just this last episode, it was really good. A lot of action. It was really fast paced. I mean, they had a lot going on in there. It didn't seem like there was a whole lot of story necessarily, but it
just a lot of the action and
just a lot of
the
like,
ramifications.
Yeah.
Of Order
and
66.
the emotional toll it takes on Rex and Ahsoka.
Yeah, it was intense. What about you, BB Nate? What did you think about this episode? Favorite moment?
The favorite moment would be the end, and of course we're gonna.
Here we go again. He likes the credits. So.
We're gonna be breaching into the spoiler territory here.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Heavy spoilers. Just want to kind of let everybody know that, but. I'd say that the last, maybe, 5 minutes where they bury all the clones and they make graves of themselves, and we see Ahsoka donning the cloak that we see at the very end of Rebels, that it's a lot like Gandalf the Grey, because she was wearing a gray cloak, and then at the end of Rebels she's wearing a white one, so it's a lot like Gandalf in that symbolization, but it was good, because afterwards you could see so much without any dialogue. It was all visual cues, and you saw the emotion in Vader's mask.
Yeah,
guess you could
spoiler
say.
alert there too. Vader.
Sorry.
Well, I said
was
heavy
there,
spoilers.
so-
I warned them, but we did see a convor as well, and
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in the next segment. So let's hold off
Okay.
on that part of the
Okay.
conversation.
Pump the brakes.
With it, I want to say for me, the surprise of Vader being at the end, and that honestly, I don't get emotional at Star Wars animation. Okay, I love Star Wars.
What about
animation.
Rebels, though?
I cheer. I mean, it was Kanan dying. That was a moment. For
Spoilers.
me.
Oh, that's
But
been
at
out for a
this
while.
one, yeah, but when Vader shows up at this one and he reaches down, he sees that clone helmet with the Ahsoka markings, and he sees picks up Ahsoka's lightsaber and all of that. It was really emotional for me that moment, because I was one of those people that wasn't really a fan of Ahsoka. I mean, I wasn't like toxic about it, but when the Clone Wars came out, we'll talk about that in the next segment or the last segment of the show. But when Clone Wars came out, it was just, she was not that big a deal. I grew to fall in love with Ahsoka because of the way that her character helped develop Anakin. And then by the end of the series, she stood on her own. I loved Ahsoka for being Ahsoka. But the connection between Anakin and the connection between Ahsoka is something that didn't make sense to me during the Clone Wars movie when it started, and I've kept thinking this doesn't fit, and now I love it. And so the Ahsoka Vader connection there at the end reminds me of Twilight of the Apprentice from Rebels, reminds me of all of this. It's absolutely my favorite part. Anything else that you guys want to say about the series finale before we move into the next segment?
Yeah, Maul was a freaking beast.
Oh, yeah.
That was amazing. He was crazy. He didn't even need a lightsaber. Who needs a lightsaber? Like,
not Maul.
No, I mean, it got brutal there.
It did.
It was a pretty amazing end to that. So, well, why don't we do this? Why don't we talk a little bit about some reviews and last week's podcast poll of the week?
Are you brainless? I never asked that question until after I've done it.
What?
All right, last week's podcast. Well, before we get into the results, we're gonna guess. We got a review.
Hey,
it was short and sweet. I like it. It's from our friend Savage Gamer 1234.
All right,
from Canada.
Okay,
thank you,
Canada.
1234. 5 stars. Great podcast. This podcast is great if you love Star Wars. This is the podcast to listen to.
Short and sweet.
Thank you.
I like it.
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Very cool.
Darth.
Okay.
Vader.
And thank you, Savage Gamer 1234.
Thank you, Savage Gamer 123, and also a big shout out to Your Money Geek. Your Money Geek gave us released today as part of their May the 4th celebration. They're sort of a really cool site, by the way. If you aren't following Your Money Geek, I want to encourage you guys to check them out. They use pop culture to teach about finance and lots of different things, and they do a lot more than just money. Okay. They really jump into sort of geek culture, pop culture, and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And they've actually wanted me to be on their podcast before, and we've been talking. They're going to be doing some stuff with us here in the future. But they actually put us on. They released today a top 10 Star Wars podcasts, and they listed us.
Well, thank you
on there.
Thank you
and
very
so, yeah, it's a pretty exciting little moment for us. So that's cool. All right, let's talk about last week's podcast poll of the week. The question was really simple. How would you feel about Saw Gerrera joining the Cassian Andor series? Because we talked a little bit about potential characters and that kind of thing. We had yes, save the rebellion. No, he's a terrorist. Only if he brings Borgullet. But it got cut off on my thing.
So it's just Borgul.
And other comment below, of the percentages, we had nobody comment below. We're going to only have 2 comments on this. So we had no, he's a terrorist, got 8.4%. Bringing Borgullet with him was 15.8%. And then the yes, save the rebellion was a runaway at 73.7%.
Okay.
Sam, why don't you read one of those 2 comments?
Yeah, this next one's from Krista Roth at Krista Roth on Twitter.
Okay.
Short and sweet. Yep, short and sweet. I to that.
Yeah.
He likes
Saw.
He likes Saw.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Samuel Hutt jumped in first on picking which comment he was going to read. So BB Nate, congratulations!
I got the long one.
You got this one. There we
Okay,
go.
so this is from Jugal83 hashtag Jedi hashtag Empire 48th hashtag Thank you George at we don't know because it was cut off because his name was way too long.
It had a lot of hashtags.
It did. Cassian is borderline Saw if you think about it. I want to know more about Enfys Nest since she was the best girl in Solo. Okay.
So I'm going to take that as being he was against Saw Gerrera coming back. He's figuring Cassian is the Saw Gerrera within this. I like the idea. I'm going to keep coming back to this, guys. I liked the idea of Cassian Andor being sort of caught between the Mon Mothma version of the rebellion and the Saw Gerrera terrorist version of the rebellion, and getting pulled back and forth.
I feel like he leans more to Saw because he just kills a guy that can't climb out of.
I think he thinks it gets results.
Yep.
It does.
Well, and it does. So, all right. Well, that's going to wrap up the podcast poll of the week. Why don't we talk about that other character that has become one of my favorite Jedi, and I think honestly, even though she said it like we had in the clip earlier, I am no Jedi, she's probably the best example of a Jedi going forward. So it's hard to believe that the Clone Wars is over. It's been an amazing ride. It has had so many different twists and turns and ups and downs, but the ending was, since we're on video now, I can do that. Chef's kiss. All of it was because of a brilliantly crafted character who we believe is what being a Jedi is all about. So let's talk.
Bulky religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blaster at your side, kid.
Rebellions are built on hope.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
If you live long enough, you see the same eyes in different people.
Ahsoka, the premise of our conversation is that Ahsoka Tano is the perfect Jedi on this, and we're going to make 3 points. Each of us are going to make one argument for it, and I think Samuel the Hutt, you're going to go first on that. So.
Well, this is more of a testament to her just skill as a Jedi, but she's one of the few small handful of Jedi who actually survived Order 66 and the ensuing Jedi Purge that took over the whole galaxy. And the only ones we really know about are Kenobi, Yoda, and Kanan Jarrus.
Ish.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of Jedi that actually survived Order 66, and that was a major premise of the Darth Vader series that by Charles Soule.
We also had Cal Kestis. I just remembered that as well.
Oh, very true.
That's true.
Well, he may not have survived the Purge.
And spoiler alert, you can just tell me, does he survive the Fallen Order?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Because I haven't finished that game yet. But lots survived Order 66. Very few, and I can only know of these handful that actually survived the Jedi Purge.
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
All the way up to what we run into at the end, in Empire Strikes Back, where Yoda and Kenobi, the Force Ghost of Kenobi, are talking, and it's essentially, Luke Skywalker's our only hope, and Yoda's like, no, there's another. Well, we know that no, there's another is Leia, but the reality is they, Ahsoka's the only one that we know of, and we only know she survives the Jedi Purge because we see her at the end of Rebels.
Right.
With that. Samuel, what do you think about her ability as a Jedi and how that contributed to her surviving Order 66 in the Jedi Purge, especially in light of today's episode?
Right. Well, I mean, she's clearly one with the Force. There's no way you're able to survive that long without, being one with the Force. And she's obviously good with her sabers. I mean, she was blocking blaster bolts left and right on this last episode. But another thing is, and this is less about the actual series that we just finished, but more about the book, the Ahsoka novel, which was fantastic. I totally recommend picking it up. But another thing that helped her survive was her loyalty to friends and her
attachments.
Yeah, her empathy.
Spoiler alert. That might be one of the 3 options there. So we'll move over to the next one. BB Nate, what is your reason for why Ahsoka Tano is the perfect Jedi?
She definitely uses the Force for knowledge and peace. She definitely doesn't like to attack or kill, as we saw in this episode again.
So she uses Yoda's version of it. You know, the Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, not to attack or for aggression or anything like that.
Yes, I mean, breaching into spoiler territory again for this
whole episode is going to be spoiler
finale. We saw that Rex was like, we got to kill them all, and she's like, not by my hand and not today, and so she doesn't kill them and finds a way to protect all of them, which I found to be really cool in how she used it, and she still got out without breaching into that territory. Yeah. So she's just very, very
compassionate.
She's compassionate, but she's also powerful enough for the Force to be able to do that, and so that's just what's really impressive for her.
I think it takes more power to not kill people with the Force and such than it is to use the Force to kill people. Like,
I mean,
if you watch like the dark side and stuff, like obviously Maul was going nuts in that episode, but I think it showed a greater strength in Ahsoka when she was able to not harm anyone. So that's my 2 cents with that.
Yeah.
BB Nate, what were you going to say there?
I mean, throughout this whole episode, and I find it to be very impressive what they did with the writing and everything, it was polar opposites. We saw Darth Maul just didn't care about the clones, was just mauling them. Pun intended. And Ahsoka was doing everything in her power not to kill them. And I just found that to be very interesting on how they're kind of rivals. That's what we found in the series, what they are.
Yeah. That's awesome. Now, mine is...
what I spoiled.
Well, it's a little bit about what you spoiled on that, but I really think it's important for us to have this conversation, and everything about these last 4 episodes specifically of the Clone Wars is running in parallel with Revenge of the Sith. And Samuel, Hutt, you and I spent some time last week while we were driving from Colorado to here to Florida. For this move, we listened to the audio book
a little bit,
of Revenge of the Sith with it. And while we were listening to Revenge of the Sith, it reminded me of this idea of attachments and how prevalent that is in the prequels and how it affects Anakin, right? So Anakin is being told from the time he leaves Tatooine as a little boy, 9 years old, no attachments, no attachments. They're worried about him. He's too old to train because he has so many attachments. Yeah. He has his attachments to his mother and all of those types of things. It's going to make it more difficult to train him with it. Then we get to episode 2. We get to Attack of the Clones, and we have the attachment to his mother is what draws him back to Tatooine, and her dying in his arm is what sets him down the path to the dark side. In that, and he slaughters all the Tusken Raiders, and not just the men, but the
women and the children too.
And it's probably because they live in sand, and he doesn't like sand. But anyway,
they're literally called sand people.
Yeah, they are. Well, I mean, he kills the people named after sand. So, and then he gets to Revenge of the Sith, and it's Padme and his connection to her, and he's desperate to save Padme, and that's what Sidious uses to drive him all the way into the dark side and get him to surrender completely to the dark side and yield and pledge his allegiance to Darth Sidious. Oh, I'm blocking the camera. Sorry about that, guys. And all of that kind of stuff. So we've got all of this going on in the storyline of Revenge of the Sith in parallel with the events of parts 1 through 4 of the last, the movie of the Clone Wars. Which is really what that was.
Okay.
And in this episode specifically, it is Ahsoka's attachments that causes her to be successful and to survive Order 66. She refuses to kill Rex in the end of the last episode at part 3. She refuses to go after him. She wants to save him from this. She cannot. It's her attachment to Rex. Her attachment to the clones. The 501st Legion with that. So her attachment to them keeps them from attacking them, even though she could. And it almost kills her. There's moments in this episode where you wonder if she's going to survive
Right. Knowing that she does.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was really interesting to see that her love for Rex, her love for the clones, caused her to be one of the very few Jedi that survives, which goes back to what I was talking about a minute ago, the Revenge of the Sith novelization. The end of that, Yoda is very clear. He's talking with Obi-Wan after all of the events of Order 66 and the Purge has begun and all this stuff. And he tells Kenobi that they made a mistake.
Really?
When it comes to not letting Anakin love. That basically the solution, the big thing is that they should, as Jedi, they should love. And it's Ahsoka who seems to have experienced that and embraced that much earlier on in this process because she leaves the Jedi Order. And she doesn't have these weights, these burdens on her of all the tradition and all of those different types of things with it. What do you think about the Ahsoka and her attachment to the clones and how that helps make her the ultimate Jedi?
Well, I mean, we've often talked about Anakin and how if he had been able to love, that none of this would have happened. And yeah, you brought this up in that when she left the Order, she was able to do whatever she thought was needed. The whole arc before this arc with the sisters, I forget their name.
Martez sisters.
The Martez sisters, thank you. Was all about her attachments to, honestly, these random strangers that she could have left at any time. And it would have been fine, but it was her attachments to them that got them out of that situation. And going into Rebels and stuff, it's what helped save Kanan and Ezra. I mean, she sacrificed herself to help so that they could escape the temple or whatever in Twilight of the Apprentice, just because she had an attachment to them. And it was a very selfless attachment and love, which, maybe this would have been this is why perhaps there was a problem with Anakin, is because it wasn't so much a selfless love. I don't think it was a very I need her, she completes me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's a very good point. Yeah. Anakin's love is an immature love. And this happens on our show. So if you're listening or you're watching this on Facebook and you're not familiar with what ends up happening more often than not on these episodes, then we want you guys to just disclaimer. We end up going down these paths sometimes. It reminds me of that famous chapter in Scripture called the love chapter, where it says love is not proud. Love doesn't boast. Love doesn't seek its own thing. Ahsoka Tano followed love that fit that format. Anakin's was selfish. Anakin's was immature. Anakin's was looking out for his own needs. He wanted to control. He wanted to make everything happen the way that he wanted it to happen. And that is a love that is not, it's not the Jedi way. So Anakin, here's where we can kind of tie this idea together, which is why I love this character so much. And I'm going to talk about that in my dad moment in just a second. Ahsoka Tano is kicked out of the Jedi Order and is the ultimate Jedi from our perspective. Anakin is the chosen one. And he falls to the dark side. And both of them struggle with this idea of attachment and love, and yet Ahsoka's attachment becomes selfless, which is why she's the great Jedi, and Anakin's becomes selfish, which is why he falls to the dark side. What do you guys think about that? Maybe Nate, I'll let you go first.
It's just the character is just always been interesting. She's definitely had the biggest character arc and the most mythology, and I mean, there's a lot you can talk about with Ahsoka, and it's funny how most of the Jedi that have been ultimate and have been saved from Order 66 have had attachments. I mean, Kanan is especially with Hera and the kids and all that stuff. It's strictly based on attachments, and he was able to start the rebellion.
But eventually it became a selfless love because he sacrificed himself for them to save them.
Yeah, at the end of Rebels, Kanan gives up everything.
Kenobi.
He becomes the ultimate force. His sight's restored with this because he's giving to others versus taking. Yeah. It's not a love that takes; it's a love that gives.
Kenobi, I mean, he had an attachment with Luke, and it was because of that attachment he sacrificed himself so Luke could go on in Episode 4. So there is this repetitive theme, I think, of attachments, but this willingness to sacrifice yourself for whoever it is that you love or care about.
And I mean, going back to Rebels, we almost have Ezra fall to the dark side because of his selfish love. He wanted to save Kanan.
It's true.
And he wouldn't have sacrificed himself. He would have killed himself, and then nothing would happen that would have been good. And then we have his final choice at the end, and he could live his life with his parents, and Sidious gives him all he wants, and he does something selfless and sacrifices himself so that he can save the rest.
That's awesome.
Yep,
that's awesome. And it's the way the whole Skywalker saga ends, with that selfless, sacrificial love that gives himself up, which is the theme of the greater story. The greater story is about one who gives himself up in ultimate love for others, and that's one of the things I love about that. All right, dad moment for this week. Here we go. For me, my experience as a Star Wars dad has come full circle. This week, we haven't talked about it a lot on this show, but the first time that I ever saw a Star Wars film in the theater with Samuel the Hutt and with BB Nate was when the Clone Wars animated feature was released in August of 2008. It was just a couple of days after BB Nate's 3rd birthday. In fact, he attended the opening night wearing a full Clone Trooper costume.
I think he was Rex.
I was.
He was a Rex
He was
costume.
Captain Rex, yeah. Star Wars fandom's first experience with Ahsoka was clunky, and it was difficult, and we didn't understand why Padme had a... Or
why Padme?
Padme, I was seeing the next word. Why Anakin had a Padawan learner. It didn't seem to make sense. We didn't like the one-liners and the nicknames, the snips and Sky Guy stuff that they exchanged. It all felt a little uncertain and uncomfortable. But today, Ahsoka has grown and matured into one of our favorite characters in all of Star Wars. And it's not unlike this show for us. When we launched our YouTube channel, and yes, originally Star Wars Tatooine Sons was a YouTube channel, and it was a flippin' mess.
It was bad.
And that's honestly being nice. Anyway, we ended up stopping that altogether because it wasn't working. And a few months later decided to launch the podcast by putting that Yeti mic on the middle of the kitchen table in California, which we talk about often. And even then it wasn't very good with it. But today... we hope that we've grown. We hope that we've matured into something that a few Star Wars fans find some joy in. And if it all happens, or if the only thing that happens when you watch this or you listen to it on the podcast is that you get a smile on your face, that you feel a little bit better about things, then we have succeeded. We don't know what the future holds for us, but we trust in one greater than the Force to guide us. And may he be with us. So, all right, guys. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
So Vader Immortal, a Star Wars VR series, is coming to PSVR this summer, which is pretty impressive because I thought it would only work on high-end like Quest and Rift S, but no, it's coming to PSVR.
Well, it was originally going to be an exclusive for Oculus.
Yeah.
But they're bringing it to PSVR,
nice.
Which I'm not against.
So it's a cheaper alternative to be able to play the amazing VR series.
For them to play it. Their technology must have caught up. So.
Yep. So we now know why we couldn't see the cover of LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga before the release of The Rise of Skywalker, because it has Rey holding her yellow lightsaber.
Yeah.
Which would have been a big spoiler.
Huge spoiler for that. So, and then the last thing is this: Droid Depot is available now for iPhone and Android. You guys, Droid Depot is this. It's an app for your phone that you can use to control any droids that you build at Galaxy's Edge, which we hope we get to do very soon if they decide to open up Disney World soon. But then also you can have like a virtual collection of droids, and they can
Tamagotchi pets or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. So that'll be pretty cool. Awesome.
I'm going to get that.
Awesome. So, all right, let's talk about what this current week's podcast poll of the week, which will be on Facebook going forward. With that, what is your favorite moment from the finale of the Clone Wars? Is it Rex and Ahsoka and just all that stuff that went on between them? Is it seeing Vader at the end? And we didn't really talk about this, but the Morai, the convor at the very end, which Dave Filoni's got a lot. I would encourage you guys to, if you don't know what we're talking about, research that, because the convor and its connection to Mortis and its connection to
Dooku
and connection to Rebels and connection to Ahsoka is really cool. So that was one of my favorite moments on that. Of those three, which one would you guys vote?
I don't know. There was so much. Probably the convor. I found that to be really cool, and I still have questions about if that was after or before Twilight of the Apprentice.
I've got a question about that too.
That's interesting. Which would you
I would go with Rex and Ahsoka. Their struggle with that whole event was really interesting to see.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with the Vader moment. I think I already
made that clear.
That one is a big one for us. All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this. We know that there were some glitches. We know that there was some.
It was clunky and awkward.
Clunky and awkward at times, but we're working on it, and we're going to get better and better. And doing it live makes it harder.
It does.
So thank you guys for playing along. I know lots of you guys are watching it. I was checking out some of the numbers there, and you guys have, hundreds of people have been sharing it and commenting, or not sharing it, but commenting on it, and lots of engagement. So thank you guys. That's what we need.
Yes.
We need you guys to follow us on all of our social media. So Facebook is the place where we really need you guys engaging with us right now. Join our discussion group. We've got a discussion group, Tatooine Sons discussion group, obviously, where you can engage with this. In fact, in order to help you do that, switch on over there, open up your Facebook search, type in Tatooine Sons discussion group, join it right now, because what we're going to do in just a second, before we switch over to Buster Cam for the ending here, Buster's taking a nap staring at Turbis. With that, is we are going to do a post show where we get to get your feedback on this show. Get your
little
thoughts,
after party.
We could talk a little bit about what we've talked about. You guys can comment. We're going to throw up an instant poll, and that's all going to be on our Facebook group in just a couple of minutes. So you have to join the Facebook group to be a part of that. Follow us on Instagram. We're going to be doing some more behind the scenes stuff. We've already been doing a little bit. We're going to be doing more of that. We're obviously going to continue to function on Twitter and be a part of that space, because that's where we've been having a lot of fun for the last couple of years with that. Give us ratings and reviews. Give us a rating on iTunes. Give us a rating on Spotify. Give us a rating on Google Podcasts. It would mean a great deal to us. Let's see. I think that's pretty much going to do it. Is there anything else that you guys want to say?
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Joy, please.
Yep, yep.